Good morning, Kentuckiana. It is 7 o'clock on your Sunday morning. Thank you for waking up with us. I'm Gabriel Gonzalez. We are glad you're here. Meteorologist Dominica Davis is back with us once again today. And Dominica, it was hot yesterday, still very muggy and humid this morning. Probably a pattern that we're going to be seeing more of.
It certainly is. We are in the middle of a heat wave. This is the hottest air of the season so far. Just as we begin summer, we are dealing with very oppressive heat. Temperatures didn't go down much overnight. You're right, Gabe. It is 79 right now at the airport. It feels like 82. So it's not just the heat, it's the humidity. And this is going to be the theme as we go throughout the week. So here's a look at temperatures all around, and it is very warm out there. Not much relief coming in overnight. Now, we do have a heat advisory in effect, and you can see this is for much of the viewing area. So these heat advisories signal that we are going to be looking at dangerous heat and feel like temperatures that will exceed potentially 105 degrees. So yes, this is some serious stuff that is on the way, and we're going to see it through the balance of the week. No worries about the radar. We are dry right now and expected to stay that way. We could have an isolated storm chance this afternoon, but really we're not looking at much coverage. If we do see that, it would be the heating of the day and just a cooling shower, nothing severe. Here's a look at your next 12 hours, and those temperatures go up into the 90s with the heat index going over 100 degrees once again for today. We'll detail the upcoming week coming up in just a little bit.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Dominica. President Trump announcing the U.S. successfully struck 3 Iranian nuclear facilities using multiple massive ordnance penetrator bombs known as bunker busters. Late Thursday, President Trump set a 2-week deadline to decide whether the U.S. would join the Israelis and help strike Iran's nuclear facilities. But Trump and his national security team opted to carry out the military operation faster than expected.
The strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
The U.S. State Department says it's evacuating U.S. diplomats and their families hoping to leave the region. Well, here at home, a local professor and Kentuckiana politicians reacted after President Trump carried out that attack. Dr. Kurt Jefferson of Spalding University told WHAS 11 on Friday he thought the U.S. would provide aid, but that would be our only involvement. WHAS 11's Clarice Shaley spoke with him again, along with Kentucky politicians, about Trump's decision.
But I didn't think the Americans would be the ones who would actually go and do the bombing themselves.
Professor of Global Leadership at Spalding University, Dr. Kurt Jefferson, surprised by actions taken by President Donald Trump, ordering the bombing of 3 sites in Iran.
Iran was given a warning by him. He's backed up his bite with the actions tonight.
This comes after more than a week of strikes by Israel on Iran to eradicate air defenses and offensive missile capabilities. Jefferson says Trump has been telling Iran they need to make peace. Without congressional approval, U.S. missiles have hit 2 uranium enrichment facilities and a uranium stockpile, which allegedly ends the nuclear program for Iranians. Kentucky Republican Representative Thomas Macy calling the move unconstitutional on social media, while Kentucky Republican Representative and current Senate candidate Andy Barr celebrated the move, saying, quote, "No other president would have had the backbone or the strength to take decisive action to rid the world of this evil."
We have an ABC political analyst who has said that this is the most consequential decision Trump has ever made. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's, I agree with that. I think it's a very, difficult decision.
A consequential action that Jefferson says will have as much impacts in America as internationally. Clarice Shaley, WHAS 11 on your side.
And WHAS 11 asked Dr. Jefferson if this means the U.S. will be going to war against Iran. He said Trump would have to go to Congress to request more troops, which he does not foresee happening. He says there are already 42,000 American troops in the Middle East right now. Meanwhile, late Saturday night, Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell gave his thoughts on the strikes. Senator McConnell commending President Trump's actions against Iran along with the U.S. service members who carried out that mission, saying, quote, the United States' interest in denying Iran a nuclear weapon, in standing with our ally Israel, and in reestablishing credible deterrent power is undeniable and urgent, end quote. And we will keep you updated on this developing situation throughout the coming days as we learn more. You can find all the latest details, plus more reactions on our website, WHAS11.com. Well, right now, LMPD is looking into two separate shootings that happened here in the metro late last night. LMPD says the first happened in the 6900 block of Brook Lawn Drive, but officers responded to Ace Liquors near the intersection of St. Andrew's Church Road and Blanton Lane. There, officers found a man with a gunshot wound to the arm. The man was taken to U of L and is expected to be okay. And reports of a second shooting came in around 12:20 this morning in the 10,900 block of Holscall Hill Road. That's over in the Fairdale neighborhood. At the scene, officers found another man suffering from gunshot wounds to his shoulder and chest. Officers rushed in and applied first aid before EMS came and took the victim to U of L Hospital, where he's expected to be okay. At this time, there is no information on the suspects for either shooting. And if you have any information on either incident, please call the anonymous tip line at 502-574-LMPD. LMPD says it shut down a potential street takeover before it happened, this time in Nulu. LMPD responded to the area on Market Street just before 1 o'clock Saturday morning. Police say around 250 people with multiple motorcycles and cars were gathered in front of Garage Bar, as well as in the parking lot across the street. LMPD says officers spoke with the bar's management and those standing outside, asking them to clear the sidewalks, move parked cars, and dispose of any open containers. Police say everyone cooperated and the situation was resolved in about 30 minutes. Additional officers were nearby, but were ultimately not needed. One person is dead and others injured after a car crashed into a house in Bardstown. Bardstown Fire responded to the crash just before 4:30 yesterday morning on Stephen Foster Avenue. According to officials, a black car left the road, hit a parked car, and then crashed into a house. Both the driver and passenger in the car were taken to the hospital, where the passenger died. The driver was flown to U of L Trauma Center. Their condition is currently unknown. LMPD is investigating after a man on a scooter was hit and killed by a car just before 5 o'clock on Saturday morning. Police say it happened on Dixie Highway. Witnesses say a man was riding an electric scooter in the right lane when he was hit by the car. The driver of the car stayed on the scene and was cooperative with police. At this time, no charges are anticipated. Well, coming up next, President Trump launching multiple missile strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities. How Iranian officials are responding to the bombings. And we have a look at your Kentucky Lottery jackpot numbers. Mega Millions, $326 million. Powerball, $128 million.
The Kentucky Lottery, over $5 billion in grants and scholarships.
We continue to follow developments in the Middle East after President Trump addressed the nation, saying the United States struck 3 nuclear sites in Iran. ABC's Maggie Rulli gives us the details.
This morning, Tehran responding after President Trump announced the U.S. successfully struck 3 nuclear facilities in Iran: Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan.
The strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
U.S. officials say B-2 bombers dropped a number of massive ordnance penetrator bombs known as bunker busters. Tomahawk cruise missiles were also fired from a submarine. Iran's foreign minister calling the attacks lawless and criminal, adding it reserves all options to defend its sovereignty, interests, and people. The country then launching missiles towards Israel. Sirens sounding over Tel Aviv as Iranian missiles were intercepted, officials urging people to seek shelter. Israel Fire and Rescue said it received several reports of direct damage to residential buildings in 3 districts. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanking President Trump, saying Iran's nuclear program threatened Israel's very existence and endangered world peace. Last Thursday, the president set a 2-week deadline to decide whether the U.S. could join the Israelis and help strike Iran's nuclear facilities. But Trump and his national security team opted to carry out the military operation faster than expected. This comes after sources told ABC News multiple B-2 stealth bombers were headed to Guam, the planes capable of dropping the 30,000-pound explosive that could potentially damage or destroy Iran's Fordo nuclear facility, buried deep underground in the Iranian mountains. Satellite imagery could determine whether these strikes took out the facility, but experts add the only way to know is to get someone on the ground.
Maggie Rulli, ABC News, London.
And the U.S. State Department says it's been evacuating U.S. diplomats and their families who wish to leave the region. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is expected to speak from the Pentagon later this morning.